Welcome back to this Black Hat Fast Chat video series. I'm Terry Sweeney, contributing editor with Black Hat, and I'm joined now by Josh Piori, senior security research analyst with Cisco Umbrella. Josh, thanks for making some time to talk today.
Oh yeah, happy to be here. Thank you so much.
So one of the things that's in the headlines is the recent takedown of the spam-based Trojan Emotet. What's happening there, and what's your best guess of what the next move is?
Oh yeah, okay. So when it happened in January, the takedown, it controlled about a little over 1 million compromised systems. In the takedown, a dropper was written to delete Emotet after a certain date, which is actually, I think, in April. That's so they can wait for more systems to connect in and get the update to remove it, basically. Those systems that are affected, they aren't receiving their next malicious payloads. They're just basically benign. So it's a lot quieter than it used to be, which is nice for the moment. But the threat actors the ones who did that specifically are arrested, but other threat actors are going to fill the void. They're going to adapt and come back with something else that's probably going to be very similar to what Emotet was. I mean, it was really effective. It was Word documents with macros on them that would run PowerShell and download additional things. I'm sure we'll see that same kind of delivery mechanism, like phishing and things. It'll continue and move forward, basically. And if you keep the money in mind, like where the money is, and you find the easiest path to that money, that's the way that the threat actors are going to go, and they're going to go the way they've been going, which is that it leads to the banking credential compromise on the systems and ransomware, and then exfiltration of data and ransom of that data. It's just going to keep on going, and someone else is going to come along with a better setup, I think.
So it seems like stealth is really what it's capitalized on and been able to exploit pretty effectively.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
In that vein, it feels like the same modus operandi has been what SolarWinds has used. Knowing what we know now, how might we have approached the SolarWinds issue differently then?
That's like the magic question that everyone's asking.
Yeah, it's a tough.
Yeah, it was so complex. I'm sure everyone knows about how it worked, but they registered a seemingly benign domain, didn't use it for about 2 years that we know of for bad activity. There was all these random weird subdomains that looked like DGAs, like dynamically generated domains, but they were associated with this benign, low-risk domain, and so no one knew what these were for. They didn't look like DNS tunneling because they didn't have a lot of DNS queries. So a lot of the mechanisms that are built out there just weren't able to detect this. And even you put human eyes on it, they're going to think it's a CDN or some kind of update system. You could use certain things, like we have a newly seen domain feature that will track domains that are newly seen domains, including subdomains. But with the low risk of the main domain, you're not going to see a whole lot. However, if you move over to other sections of security, like endpoint detection, like where I work, we do DNS layer, but of course Cisco is broad and does a lot of different kind of layers, but it's all a layered security approach. But with endpoint detection, a lot of the malware artifacts that were associated with this did things the way they always do. They installed registry keys, tasks to run on startup, they ran in memory. So your typical rule-based detection engines may not have caught this because we didn't know about it, but more intelligent stuff might have. It's like, for example, FireEye caught it because they were probably using something more intelligent, their own product, in their environment. That's how they found it. They found something doing something it wasn't supposed to.
Well, so with that in mind, what seems like constant escalation between the good guys and the bad guys. From the good guys' perspective, what kinds of data are most useful in facilitating threat hunting?
Oh yeah. Well, I personally, as a threat hunter, I'm looking for as much data as I can get. I work with a lot of DNS data, so that's really wonderful for me. But I've worked with system log, network flow data, anything high volume, so I can look for patterns. And I can compare that with, when I'm analyzing malware or analyzing malicious stuff, I can find what is in that data and build automated techniques to find that stuff. So basically, the more data I can get from everywhere. I get open source data, I get from lists I'm subscribed to, from groups I'm parts of, from third parties, from companies that graciously give their data away. All that stuff. It's useful, and I use it to baseline whatever it is I'm looking at, because the normal, whatever normal is in an environment, is constantly changing. So you have to constantly be getting the new stuff and figuring out what's happening. That's kind of a long answer, but I'll take what I can get as a threat hunter, basically.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
When you're talking with customer organizations, I'm curious if you tell them to use threat hunters, or is having a SOC or an incident response team typically sufficient to handle these kinds of threats?
Oh, I think a SOC is a central place for security incidents typically, and I've worked in SOCs before where it was just analysts, and with analysts looking at alerts that are popping up on the screen, you're just playing. You're putting out the fires that are constantly happening. You're looking for what has already happened. I think that threat hunters are big a part of the SOC. They need to be able to take that data that they're seeing, look at the risks that an organization is affected by, and then kind of try to predict the future of what's going to happen to minimize stuff. It's the same thing as sysadmins and other system builders. You're building things, trying to protect them from what may happen in the future. So I think threat hunting is super important for a SOC, and in addition to all the other disciplines that are inside the Security Operations Center.
Thanks. Talk for a bit, if you would, about separate from, say, automated functions. How can Umbrella help us detect, say, potential data breaches in our own networks?
So, like I mentioned before, it's a layered security approach that everyone should be using. You want to use lots of different products or solutions. You may not see the attacker who's dedicated to getting into your network by like compromising a system from outside, but you would definitely see the call outs that are happening. If you're talking specifically about Umbrella, it's DNS layer. So you're looking at DNS call outs. We have an IP enforcement layer as well, and we have proxy stuff, proxy detection. So we'll see those, like if there's malware on the system, or if there's command and control communication of any kind, or suspicious behavior like DNS tunneling, or you're visiting newly seen domains that have a really bad reputation. You'll see that kind of stuff. We see about 350 billion DNS requests a day, and we find these domains that are malicious really fast with our classifiers or algorithms that find this stuff. We have just a visibility into this infrastructure that's really complex. We get to see kind of the web of the internet, which is really interesting.
So, just so I'm understanding correctly, does Umbrella help us as customers understand when our networks have been targeted by hackers?
Yeah, it can help at some levels if you're looking at it from some perspectives. If you can see, basically you can see the unusual activity, network activity leaving your network or attempting to leave your network, basically. Yeah, if someone's targeting you, like scanning you from outside, looking for potential points of entry, you probably won't see that from this specific thing, but you'll see them when they're inside and trying to get the data out.
That's great perspective on the shape of the threat landscape today, Josh. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We've been talking with Josh Piori of Cisco Umbrella. This has been Terry Sweeney. Thanks for joining us today for this Black Hat Fast Chat. See you next time.